more attendees popping in, and I'll see some more trickle over throughout the time here. But I want to get started because we have a lot of great content to share with you guys. I want to do some quick introductions, for us on the call here as well too. My name's Nick. I'm the VP of Product Development here at Sourcepass. Help drive Quest, our customer experience platform that we're going to be showcasing to you today, and some of the recent updates. I'm also a Microsoft MVP and have a YouTube channel called T-365 where I promote a lot of Microsoft content. I want to turn it over to my colleague Graham on the call today. He's going to be helping me present and walking through a lot of the automation that he's been working on.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Hi, everybody. I'm Graham Rosenberg. I'm the director of the Robotic Operations Center here at Sourcepass. I oversee a lot of our automation and RPA efforts, both internally and for our customers.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get more about what RPA means and some of the automations that he's been working on. And we'll also be showcasing some of the functionality that you could begin to build as well too, as it relates to potential automations in your business that could drive a lot of new efficiencies, cost savings, as well as just get a lot of time back for a lot of employees as well too. So we'll be focusing in on the Quest business use case, but along with that will come some more of the broad-based concepts that you can begin to brainstorm on as it relates to automation within your business. But just a quick background on Sourcepass. We're a managed service provider out of Long Island. For those of you that don't know, we've been growing really rapidly here. We have services for both managed clients, fully managed, and co-managed as well too. But we do a lot and span a lot of different product categories. We also have been growing a lot as well too, in the sense of our reach. Been doing a lot of M&A, but have over 600 employees now, over 2,500 clients, with a 97% CSAT survey score on average. And we have a lot of different verticals that we're serving as well here too, across our customer base. And in all cases, we're finding a lot of commonalities with the automations that we're going to be showcasing to you guys today. Really quickly though, just a quick note on Quest. This is our customer experience platform for those of you not aware, but we really are bucketizing, some of the major categories of some of the solutions and business outcomes that we're delivering with Quest as it relates to your IT experience. And some of these related to the automations that we'll be showcasing today that are more prepackaged, but some of them also get into the exploratory data layer that we'll be showcasing through reporting that we have in Quest. We have kind of an AI layer that we're leveraging right now as well too to help us out with ticket classification, ticket routing, just to expedite the service that we perform behind the scenes. And then we're going to get into some of the future state here of more of the VCIO concepts for technology budget tracking, contract management, and things like that as well too. But mostly today I wanted to cover some of the updates, the recent updates with Quest, just so those of you on the call who leverage this today can understand some of the things that we've been working on. We did release our Android output as far as the Android application. We now have it on iOS and Android. If you've been logging into Quest lately, you might have seen the QR code that we produced in there that you can just quickly scan. At the end of this presentation, we'll be showing you guys some of those QR codes as far as what you can do to just scan to go ahead and download the application. And we've already had a lot of people go out and reach out for this today. And a lot of our customers today are using this daily, just going out and monitoring things like ticket activity, some order status updates if you're ordering any type of hardware from us that we're maybe drop shipping to you as well. So Graham, I wanted to hear from your side. You've been close to the customers and everything that we're doing. How do you see, the mobile app being used the most within the ecosystem?
Yeah, traditionally our communication around tickets have revolved around email, and clicking on links in those emails will take you out to an external web browser, which isn't always the most enjoyable experience. Bringing this into a mobile app that's built for the phone just makes it super convenient for staying up to date on your tickets, your orders, your billing, things of that nature. If you get if we respond to a ticket, you'll get a push notification on your phone. So even if you're away from your computer, if you have a high priority issue, you'll be updated in real time and be able to respond to us from the mobile app in real time as well.
Awesome. Yeah, certainly a game changer when it comes to doing things on the go. And certainly the ticket attraction is definitely where we've seen the most volume in the sense of the feedback. And for that reason, from a looking at the future state of what we've been building as well too, we're going to be doing a quick follow-up here that's more of a support-driven focus for the end users within the organization to really get quick access to both the IT department, obviously, just in the sense of quick ticket hits, but also what we'll be showcasing later today is more of the pre-packaged automation flows that we're going to be introducing as well too, which relate to some of the common tasks that we see a lot of activity from that are very mundane, very manual, but still need to be buttoned up from a security sense, and still need to be actioned off on expedited fashion, like a password reset. Somebody's not able to get into their account and things like that as well too. So more to come on this release, but definitely going to try to keep hammering in on the focus for the support experience. Some of the other things that we've been working on, though, we did release this new support dashboard, which is really getting into this data exploratory layer in the sense of all of the data that we pull in from the service side of the house and present to you. So I can actually show that in a little bit deeper fashion here within this test environment. But this dashboard here is kind of pulling up all of the service metrics for your company that you'd be able to see really quickly. You have some toggles in here for different types of tickets, but you can see the month over month trends. And some of this data, we're really trying to be transparent with in the sense of our acknowledgement times and response times, acknowledge and resolution times for these tickets. So you can see how we're trending, and we're giving you that visibility at your fingertips versus needing to reach out on a monthly basis or quarterly basis to understand where the activity has lied. And also, we're doing this on the category layer. We're taking a look at the ITEL ticket categorization for these use cases, and we're presenting that in various fashions. The biggest feature update that we just did recently here too is that you can click on any of these data points across the reporting here, and you can actually see if you drill down, if I have some good data here, I can pull up if any one of these has any records. This is a little bit of a demo on demand here. So there might be some of these that don't have any records that pull up, but effectively you'd be able to see the underlying metadata that's behind this as well too, and what makes up these statistics. So you can really drill into the tickets themselves. This is a better example here of where you're able to see all the ticket data that make up that metric. So it's really talking about telling a story of where your data is living and then being able to drill in on an individual ticket layer. Graham, I know in a past life, a lot of your efforts in your past role, if you will, has been related to building reports for customers. So love to hear your thoughts on this and just kind of where you see a lot of the value being transferred in the sense of the reporting we're delivering here.
Yeah, absolutely. For many years, I was in charge of kind of delivering reports to our customers. And at that time, and majority of the managed service providers out there are using a third-party tool to deliver those types of reports. The cool thing about having it built in the Quest here is you're already logged in, single sign-on with your Microsoft account or other provider, and everything's built into the single pane of glass. You can click into these different gauges and graphs, and if you want to look at a specific ticket, you just click on it, and it will bring you directly to that ticket inside of the same platform. Historically, you would have to, if that functionality existed, it would bring you to a different page outside of the ecosystem. And it was pretty clunky. Having it all under a single pane of glass is just so beneficial, and it looks pretty cool as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really try to pull a lot of the insights in here, including things like even employee onboarding and offboarding. And I know this means a lot to certain industries or certain companies that we interact with, maybe that have a lot of churn or are doing a lot of heavy growth today, where you want to be able to monitor these statistics a little bit more closely. But we also show things that are really trying to help on the inside with becoming more proactive, like the devices that are causing the most support cases. And the same thing with users. If there is any sense of trending users that have a lot of tickets, maybe it's a training issue, maybe it's a we need to go fix something, and that Sourcepass looking proactively, within that environment. And the same is true with the ticket categorization. We're proactively monitoring this as well too to identify are there any new knowledge base articles that we need to be building to help out with self-service or deflection capabilities? Or is there something that we can put into place that maybe alleviates this altogether? So a lot of cool reporting that's coming here. The service report is one of those components. We're also in a beta stage here for project reporting, where you can monitor all of your projects that are in flight with us or historical in a single location. And we're tying everything together as far as being able to get status updates, being able to see who your PM is and their contact information and reaching out. And then additionally, how that ties back to billing events and your invoices and everything within Quest all being tied in. So really in a good state for that. And really excited. If you want to be part of the beta, feel free to reach out afterwards to your account manager. I'd be happy to add you in there just to be able to see some of the existing projects you may be working on, or if you want to go ahead and line that up for a future project that you would have in mind as well too, that would just live within the Quest platform for you to be able to see. And the same thing is true here for our security reporting, where we have a lot of data that we're basically massaging from various vendors that you might be consuming today, like Microsoft 365 is a great example of one. But how does that blend into your security awareness training that you might be doing, or your patching information that's coming from your remote monitoring and management tool? So really are creating a holistic security score here to be able to transcend and showcase to you kind of your security over time and some of the biggest threats potentially within your environment that we're trying to be proactive with you on, but also giving you a lens into maybe some peace of mind, right? In the sense of having a lot of things overcome by, knowing what CVs are out there or vulnerabilities and knowing your systems are up to date. And I think that's a big deal. We're going to continue to lean into this, but this has been a lot of a big focus for us in just getting this alpha together. And we'll be going with the beta for this one here pretty soon as well too. Last couple updates here, some interesting ones for the banking and for the actual invoicing that we do within Quest. You can now add a bank account. We added this mandate, which effectively is just saying that you don't have to get micro deposits into your bank account anymore. We're working with Stripe as our payment gateway system to perform really secure checks on your banking information so that it takes lesser of the administrative overhead of getting that set up, but still doing it in a very secure fashion. So just a win there on being able to set things up. You can manage auto pay and other various aspects within the platform today as well too. Just have seamless billing and aggregated billing across maybe the third-party technology vendors that you consume today as well too, like again, Microsoft being one of those as well. So Graham, I wanted to shift it over to you as well too, as we kind of lean into the automation side. And I first just wanted to hear from you, what is RPA? This is a kind of an acronym that maybe not a lot of us know or cannot even understand after repeating it. So I'd love to hear from you, your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to start with a basic understanding of what RPA is and why it's gaining so much traction in small business today. RPA is all about using software bots to handle tasks that are repetitive and rule-based. You can think of it as having a digital assistant that can perform routine digital tasks across multiple systems in an automated fashion. One key advantage of RPA is its rapid implementation. Unlike traditional IT solutions that might take months or even years to deploy, we can get RPA deployed and rolled out pretty quickly, allowing you to start seeing the benefits almost immediately. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's highly scalable and can be tailored to meet specific needs of different industries and functions. So like whether you're in HR, finance, IT, RPA can adjust to your business requirements and suit your needs. This final point here is one of the most impactful benefits of automation, in my opinion. By handling repetitive tasks, it minimizes the risk of human error and ensures consistent execution. Such reliability is essential for meeting regulatory standards, especially in high regulated sectors like healthcare or finance.
Yeah, and I think, the big thing here, robotic process automation, I think has come a long way, right? And I think about the history of that truly was more robotic in nature, and you had to have a certain level of sophistication with being able to code and doing various skill sets that today it's really transformed into we've moved from low code, no code into you don't need to know any of that. You're just kind of dealing with the front end, that we're getting into. So I think it's important to note that the barrier to entry in being competent with this is greatly reduced in even the past 5 years, and especially with AI kind of increasing to that. So We'd love to hear from you too, based off this slide. What is the value? Why should I, as a small business, start to consider evaluating RPA or automations within my business?
Yeah, sure. I do want to call out RPA has been around in enterprise going back many years, and it's only, as you kind of suggested, that the last 5 years entered the small business realm. Uh, RPA really dramatically increases efficiency by taking over some of your time-consuming tasks. Employees are freed up to focus on more strategic, high-value activities that drive business growth. Something we track internally is the hours saved from manual data entry or handling repetitive queries. RPA really helps reduce operational costs by minimizing that manual labor and improving process efficiency. This reduction in manual effort leads to significant cost savings, as we've experienced, especially for businesses with high transaction volumes. As I mentioned earlier, you can also ensure that tasks are performed accurately and consistently, which is vital for maintaining compliance with regulations. Automated processes leave a clear audit trail, making it easier to meet those regulatory requirements. And by offloading these repetitive tasks to bots, employees can focus on more meaningful and engaging work. This shift not only boosts productivity, but also improves the job satisfaction and retention rates and just the satisfaction of your coworkers and employees.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal. I mean, I think if we think about growth for a business, there's a lot of things that we can do that get into busy work. And we'll certainly talk about some of the ones that relate to even just thinking about your most basic layer of managing spreadsheets and tracking things manually in spreadsheets. That's a really purpose-built example for RPA. And I think for a small business, especially, to think about automating those tasks, freeing up your employees or not having to hire new full-time engineers or employees to go ahead and fulfill the ever-growing, expanding work that linearly happens when you're growing as a business, acquiring more business yourself from customers. I think that's a huge deal when we talk about this as well too. So, on this section here, I'd love to also hear from you just about, what does it look like, as I'm stepping into RPA as a business, but also how to set yourself up for success when you're taking a look at potentially implementing this in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before diving into automation, it's essential to prepare properly to ensure success. Usually, we start by identifying processes that involve repeatable data entry. Tasks like filling out forms or entering data into systems are perfect candidates for automation, as these tasks are usually consistent and rule-based, making them ideal to be automated. The forms we have in Quest are integrated into our RPA system and allow us to run different workflows and automations upon submitting that form. When selecting a process for automation, it's imperative that we ensure it's well documented and optimized. Automation really should enhance your existing process, as automating a flawed process will only magnify the inefficiencies. When diving into RPA, I suggest beginning with a small manageable test process. This allows you to test the waters and demonstrate the value that RPA can bring and refine your approach before we scale it up into a much bigger process. I suggest focusing on processes that have clear, repeatable steps. These structured processes are easier to automate and will provide the most significant initial benefits. Something to keep in mind is RPA is not a one-time setup. As your business processes change, so does the RPA workflow. As long as your process doesn't change, the automation shouldn't need to be changed. But as we all know, processes evolve, and thus the automation will need to evolve as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you call that probably the biggest point that we see a lot of breakdowns with is trying to automate broken processes or systems in the sense of, hey, we think this is a problem, but instead of actually taking it and breaking it down into consumable steps, we're, trying to layer on, and it kind of sets you up for failure given that you're going to build an automation that can't be sustained or can't scale with the business whatsoever. And I think the point of something that's really repeatable today is very much, a good place to start to sink your teeth in. And we'll certainly show you guys some of the tools you could begin to start with existing software or licensing that you might have today. within your environment. So your investment cost is really just your time to start playing around with this. And then you can move up into more advanced levers depending on what your ROI looks like there. But those are some great points, just to consider for overall, not kind of moving down into a path where you say, well, I don't believe in this automation stuff because it didn't work here. You have to be folding it into a process that's consumable there. So for us, Graham, I know you're working on a ton of different automations. We have some significant capabilities internally that we've been working on for our internal flows that have caused some serious savings for us in the sense of our own efficiencies. But I'd love for you to hear, from you just more about either those or some of the ones that you could see really well for, your basic small business or customer out there as well too.
Sure. Yeah, we can look at some real world examples that Sourcepass have automated for our customers. One of the most common solutions we've automated with RPA is around the new user onboarding process. This automation includes everything from account creation, applying permissions, and granting system access. Uh, this reduces the setup time from hours to just minutes in some cases, significantly speeding up the onboarding experience. We offer an advanced version of this automation that integrates directly into your HR system. By automating the synchronization of user data across your HR system down to all your other tools, we ensure that things like names, titles, managers, departments, etc., are always up to date. This not only saves time, but also maintains data accuracy across the board. And a lot of this is also true for the user offboarding process as well. Another common workflow that we've automated is integrating multiple ticketing systems together. For many of our co-managed customers, they have their own ticketing system. So we've gone in and synchronized ticket data between their system and the Sourcepass system. And what this does is it allows the internal IT staff of our customers to continue using their preferred tools while keeping data aligned across our system and their system. This integration has improved response times, enhanced service efficiency, and has boosted customer satisfaction as well. As you mentioned earlier, another common workflow focuses on automating spreadsheet reconciliation. This automation removes the need for manual data comparison, which is often error prone, and helps streamline financial reporting while ensuring data accuracy across the board. And the last bullet I have on here is a frequent request we receive, and it's the automation of notifications and alerts. These can be set up as either emails or messages in Microsoft Teams or messages in Teams channels. Automating these notifications ensures that important updates are communicated properly, enabling faster responses. Often we see these just being triggered by an event in your whether line of business application, or we can even trigger them on a time base as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely powerful stuff here. And depending on your business, there's a lot of different pockets that you could look at as far as where, you might have efficiencies, but definitely on more of that IT side, we see a lot of the value in ROI going into the employee lifecycle components. So I wanted to kind of branch off into that even further here to give you guys more of a visual with three separate use cases. Specifically for user onboard, like Graham mentioned, we could do things like get an offer accepted, right, from your HR tool. In this case, we're using Workday as an example, but it can really be from any, Workday or sorry, HR system. And today we're using Quest Forms to be able to facilitate, the user creation that's automated with the RPA tooling that Graham uses on the back end to perform these activities. So when we talk about that, we're talking about user created in Microsoft. We're assigning them their correct license. We're adding them to the groups that they need to be part of. We're generating a temporary or a permanent password. We're assigning their manager, and then we're providing them access to the applications or document repositories that they would need on day one. And this is in and of itself just very tedious, like Graham mentioned earlier, very prone to human error. And that's where we see a lot of not only time savings, but just consistency in the process. We can then, send an email to the manager or HR, notifying them that this activity's been done or sending a temporary password or something like that within there. We can create an IT ticket, today that's on our side within ConnectWise and our ticketing system. But that includes all the information that we performed. And then within the form, as we'll show a little bit later, it could be additional information that maybe we haven't fully automated yet that the technician can then just close out the gap. Ideally, though, we're checking 90+% of the typical task, including sending the user a welcome email that's from the company that basically is just showcasing, hey, welcome to your first day. These are your first steps that you'll take, or helpful links, or whatever that might look like for you. And for us, we like to send out to our new employees a QR code to download Quest so they can submit any cases, that might come up maybe on their first day, as a really great touch point, where they might say, my equipment wasn't delivered to me or something like that, right? Especially in this hybrid and remote world. The second use case is the user offboard. And this one's really powerful, not only from an efficiency sense, but also from a security sense as well, too, when you think about the common events that you'd want to take place. So within Quest, you can have this form as well too, where we could look at scheduling your offboarding, or we could do it immediately. If it's a time sensitive issue where somebody was immediately terminated, we need to rip out all their access right now, where we can go in and we can automate this to block the user from signing in. We can revoke all their existing sessions, meaning if they have an opened browser window with their email open, we can close that session out and they won't be able to access it perpetually, from the time and the session that they have open. We can reset their password. We can set out of office replies on their email and provide access to their email to another user to monitor temporarily while they transition out. The same thing with their files. And we can also then create the IT ticket as well too. This last one here is also one I've done in the past with certain customers related to financial tracking. And this is basically kind of some invoice reconciliation where you might receive invoices or PDFs of your receipts in the mail as an email. And we can upload those when they come in through email into a folder within OneDrive. We can then scan them. And in the sense of the PDFs, we can extract values out of them, like the date, the vendor, and the amount of those charges. And we can pump them into an Excel sheet. And that's a very common task that I see a lot of our, any business is going to basically be doing on a consistent realm to be able to reconcile all the vendors that they pay today and reconciling the charges against that. And in other cases, instead of an Excel sheet, I've pumped this into QuickBooks or other third-party tools that the company uses to be able to facilitate that. There's obviously layers of complexity or advanced capabilities you can get into. But I hope these examples kind of showcase maybe some of the pain points that you either have today or see some of the opportunities. And I hope it got your mind working in the sense of what potential you could see in your business as well, too. So when we talk about that, when we talk about cost and time savings, I think there's two different realms there. Sometimes they work together. But I think when you consider this, this is just a basic example of what you could be looking at. But you could take an employee's hourly rate for who might be doing these repetitive tasks, and then you would calculate, maybe the time it takes to perform that task. In this use case, as an example, I just use the example of using a manual upload of data that comes from an email into a spreadsheet. Maybe it takes that user about 30 minutes to perform that task, but they do it about 30 times per month. So that's cost savings itself is around, $510 per month, but it's also 15 hours time saved back for that employee. And that's really where we see a lot of value coming from these tools. And this is just one example where you say my cost savings for the year is $6,100 roughly for what we can do based off of just that one activity. And the goal here would be able to start with your most time-consuming task and continue to compound them. So month over month, you're saving more and more time, which subsequently saving you more and more money. Either through the time savings that you get back to focus into more strategic initiatives or value-driven activity that to your downstream customers, as well as just the cost savings of not having to hire another employee to keep up with the demand. And that's a pretty big deal, especially because most employees, right, I would think, in the general sense, would rather spend their time on doing things that are really expanding their skill sets versus the mundane spreadsheet activity. I can't say that for everybody, but certainly that's the kind of employees that you'd like to have within your organization. I don't know, Graham, if you have any other thoughts on this slide, in the sense of your experience there and what you've seen internally too.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is once you automate a task, as long as you don't change the process, that will just continue to save you money month over month, year over year. And the more of those tasks you get accomplished and automated, that number just continues to grow and grow and grow. The best automations are the ones that you forget you've automated. It's just a common practice is, you don't have to do those mundane tasks anymore. They're just handled for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly think of that a lot when we think about some of the things that we've done for new user onboarding, and even that PDF one, I implemented it at a previous company, and I can tell you just not having to scan those emails every day for those invoices and peel out the information. It wasn't flawless by any means, but 99% of the time it worked and it saved us hundreds of hours, and not having to perform that. But we also had a lot more confidence in our reconciliation because, it's extracting that value. It's very consistent. It's not fat fingering anything into the Excel sheet because it's automating that process of dynamically grabbing and placing those values. So definitely some huge value there in the sense of what you can do. I also just wanted to quickly showcase to you guys now too, with when we talk about automation and things that we've been working on lately. Graham and I have been working a lot in the sense of our collaboration because Graham manages the RPA side and me and my team manage the Quest side of the house. But we really wanted to mirror those out and be able to showcase kind of a custom solution for you guys as well too, that you could leverage, but also some out of the box automations that we'll be introducing here in the coming quarter. But effectively here, if you guys have used Quest, you know that we have more of these categories where you could dive in and you can look at certain support forms like a hardware request as an example here that you can submit to us. But what we built on the back end to this, and if you're a client admin within here, you can go in and you can actually create different forms. And we could call this something like it's showing here in the placeholder text, employee onboarding. And then I'm just going to put test here for the sake of this, which you could place these forms into certain categories as well too. So you may say this is admin and this is a new hire request, right, for the subcategory. And we can modify these categories to see as you see fit too. Roost is the name of our backend RPA tool that we leverage with and partner with. And effectively here, what we built in is a way for us to dynamically pass whatever is filled out in this form to Roost to then go perform these automations that reach into Microsoft or, various other platforms that we interface with, like our ticketing system included, to be able to perform, that end-to-end activity. So out of the box, we're going to have some here for user onboard, offboard, and certain other workflows like even adding members to distribution lists, shared calendars, and things like that. But we also want to give you guys the capabilities to go in and create a custom form and then consult with us on, well, what automation would you like to see happen from this activity? And so when we do this, we can just save and continue here. This is where you actually get to build your form in the sense of the questions and all the logic that's involved. And when I say logic, I'm mostly speaking to an example of, well, we might want to have a conditional statement where if one answer is answered yes, then I want to present other questions. Because the biggest thing that we want to do is allow our users to consume this report or this form without feeling like they have to fill out, 100 questions to get that done. And that's a pretty big deal here. I know you've been working on this a lot with the team, Graham, so I don't know if you have any other comments that you'd add to this or thoughts, but I'd love to hear that too.
Yeah, one thing I want to call out is that Roost link you showed on the previous screen, that submits all of the question responses to Roost, and we're from there able to use a variety of different RPA workflows to automate things. We also have the ability to tie Roost RPA into questions specifically, as you can see down at the bottom there. These are very powerful in terms of getting real-time data into your questions. A very common use case would be, on a new user onboarding form, if you want to add new user to distribution lists, we can call upon Roost to call upon Microsoft to pull in real time your list of distribution groups. So an idea around that is, if someone in your company added a new distribution list this morning, we don't have to update our form. We're going to pull that list in real time, and you'll be able to select it, even if it was created just minutes or hours ago.
Yeah, and that's a great call out here, and that's what we're seeing here with these kind of spinning wheels, right? We want to give you some visual indicator from a UI element to show you that we're dynamically pulling these values from a third-party source. In this case, it might be Microsoft, it might be other tooling, but as you'll notice also here too, when I fill that location, the street address also is dynamically updating here, the city, the state, based off of that selection as well too. So it's just a better user experience in that way to be able to pull that and to be able to pull even these dynamic values against Microsoft that span across, managers, that span across distribution groups, Teams channels, even your licensing that you have within the Microsoft ecosystem. We can pull dynamically so that you can see if there is an actual available license as well too. So that's another really powerful part of these forms is that we no longer have to maintain these form fields. Like if you add departments over time or if you add groups, that's dynamically updating without us having to manually update the form, and allows you to have much less time going into maintenance and much more time just focusing in on is there improvements we can make beyond what's already in here today if our processes change whatsoever.
Yeah. Another call out on that too is if you want to, interface with us and customize these even further, if you have line of business applications that are very kind of tied into your business, that's a set, not Microsoft, but like a line of business application that's not very common, as long as they have an API, we can likely tie into that API and show some of that data inside of these forms dynamically as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big piece. Certainly like to work with vendors that are or a little bit more modern, have some good API capabilities. But I know we've worked with a lot of different customers in the past to formulate different custom fields. Also works back to the HR integrations too. Like if they have good APIs, we're able to do more of those, prior to even reaching out to IT, we can trigger the event from the offer being accepted, which is really, in my mind, the true genesis of a user needing to be created, within the environment and kind of kicking off that workflow that typically involved, three separate departments in a lot of cases to have collaboration and perform some type of workflow to get that collaboration going in that the offer's been accepted. Now we got to tell the manager, maybe the manager's the one who submits the ticket to IT, or maybe it's just HR to IT. But if we just take away that whole process and allow these tools to just talk to each other, we have a lot of uniqueness there in the sense of the opportunity to streamline those events. But like Ram again mentioned earlier, really related also to, all the various components there as far as having some breakdowns maybe in the human taking involvement into that. But the consistency piece I think is really big as well there too. So the last couple things, if I just kind of skip past this section again, and we go into, we have various other categories in here that you could build as part of this, and the same thing is true with the logic that you're seeing in here. I got to type in at least one question to move forward. But the other thing that's important to note that we can control, access into certain companies, but we can show this to certain people within the organization. So if you want to limit access to certain users or by role, you're able to do that within Quest. And then if I'm able to move forward here, you could also, for us, what's really great is we can also dictate if it's not necessarily, or maybe it could be hybrid in certain ways, we can dictate what team it goes to in the sense of our ticketing board and the team that goes to work on that. So it's a kind of a faster routing capability. And we can also classify those tickets as well too here when they're submitted. So you also have consistency in the reporting layer, for the tickets being submitted by these forms. And you can also CC individuals uniquely if this form is ever submitted. So a lot of different various customizability there when it comes to the capabilities that we've been trying to build. But then in the form section here, like we saw, we can do that, or we could do something like the employee onboarding is another one here, and then I might have one for user termination. Let me just see if I can pull that up here. We have various ones in here, so I'll um I'll pull that up a little bit later. But effectively here, you have those capabilities to submit those, and then you're able to view the status of the ticket directly here within Quest, or in the mobile application as well too. And you do get those push notifications when there's updates to the status of those tickets as well too, that you can click in and you can kind of monitor from here as well, which does include, all the screenshots that were taken, if there is any, and kind of the progress of the ticket as well. So a lot of cool capabilities. Like I mentioned in the new ticket section, we are going to be including what we're calling smart requests, which are going to be more of those pre-packaged automations for password resets. You can kind of go into your own onboarding flow and reach out to us if you want us to tailor the new user onboarding form even further than the generic one that we're going to put out there that'll do more of the example that I showed earlier as far as walking you through, the employee onboarding. The other things that we're going to be coming out with, just to kind of allude to that, is also this approval workflow that's kind of built into the automation capabilities as well too, where you could submit approvals for either, Sourcepass or internal users to your organization, where somebody may need access to a document or somebody may need access to an application temporarily. We all have these access changes or approval workflows within our organization that help us not only with security, but also just making sure that we're not overly providing access, to individuals in a lot of cases. And that's just one example. We could certainly do a lot for this. It could even be for quote approvals. If you want to get a new laptop and you want to get approved for a certain type of laptop, that might be a lot more of a specification than what typically somebody gets in your organization. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that as well too, that we're looking to bring out. I talked about this though in the sense of the real-time data syncing. Graham mentioned that being a big differentiator for these forms, and I totally agree. In the sense of being able to dynamically pull those down. The RPA integration, I think out of the box, right? We want to have those for anybody to come in and consume, just so we start automating a lot of the common tasks like the user creation, licensing, adding them to the correct groups, things of that nature. But then how can we tailor it to more of your business workflows today, right? Is there anybody we need to communicate? Or are there any other business applications that the user could access that we could go out and reach out to the owners to add them uniquely? So we're just diversifying, the responsibilities in that sense. And then the prepackaged automations I touched on as well too. So we talk about, user creation, licensing users, all of that I mentioned earlier. And then some of these ones, even new workstation onboarding is one that I haven't necessarily touched on, but it is something that we want to be world class in, so that you can leverage all the different components of Quest, being able to go from submitting the request, approving a quote, going into, an order status to see the shipment tracking, and then having the inventory listed in the Quest platform here. So when I mentioned that, you'd go through your process here of approving that. You go into maybe approving a quote if you need to do that. You have your order here, so you could track the status, and you do get notifications of push updates when there is shipment tracking status changes. You'd be able to see that in your invoicing section here as it relates to that invoice for what you purchased. And then you would be able to see the workstation here in your asset inventory. So it's kind of a complete life cycle. I would be transparent in saying I love to keep cleaning up the user experience, so we continue to push for the overall flow just being a little bit more fluid in that sense versus clicking through these tabs that I just showed you there. But you do get the complete picture of that, and that's a lot of the experience that we're trying to drive within the platform, reducing a lot of the friction that exists in IT today, a lot of the back and forth, the phone tree examples that we see a lot of as well too. But as far as the closure for today, I wanted to open it up because I know we have about 10 minutes left or so here, and I want to make sure we left enough time for any Q&A. But also wanted to showcase, these QR codes if you want to download Quest, depending on your OS there. If you're an existing SourcePass customer, you'll be able to download and log in today. If you're not, we'd love to hear from you too after this webinar. But I wanted to open up for questions as well too. If you guys want to pop them into the chat, that'd be great. Catherine's kind of monitoring those. I do see we have one from a little bit earlier today, which is the question of, does Quest have the agility to process auto pay on certain bills or invoices versus every bill? That's a great question. It actually is something that we're working on right now. Today, it's going to set up auto pay for all of your bills within the platform, but we have gotten that feedback a lot about the granularity of being able to select, kind of your recurring bill versus one-time payments, maybe for hardware or project work that you want to review first before doing that. But you can select auto pay today within the platform, select the payment method, and agree to the terms and conditions to enroll. The iteration that we're working on would allow you to select the invoice type, as you're alluding to there. So you can select, managed services versus one-time payments versus project work and things like that as well. Well, great question. Are there any thoughts on integrating generative AI into RPA? Yes, there is. So I'd love to get Graham's take on this too, but the tooling that we use definitely has an existing OpenAI integration that we could potentially leverage. But for us, we're actually using Azure OpenAI internally so that we can host kind of a public or privately hosted large language model. And that's really great for us so that we're not training the public model with any sensitive data by any means. And we're getting to keep it all in-house for us as well. But we do want to factor in a lot of those use cases. One of the things that we're doing today, this isn't necessarily using RPA fully, but we are auto looking at every single ticket that comes through and trying to classify it based off of previous tickets and our ITEL categorization for that. As an example, but there's obviously a many different use cases. I'd love to hear, whoever submitted that question, any examples of what you were thinking about there too. But it's a wide net to cast in that sense as far as what we could do. But Graham, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that question as well.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Absolutely, we're looking into that, and we will eventually get there. As we play around with kind of the Azure OpenAI integration, we just want to make sure we're not sending your data out to just the regular OpenAI or ChatGPT or any other large language models, that we're doing it in a secure manner that we own the data. So definitely looking into that, and we will definitely be rolling that out over the months and years to come.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of R&D in that area. Have a lot of great thoughts coming out of it. We're trying to be conscientious of not trying to use large language models as something that you could solve for with previous technology, like a basic algorithm, right? But also understanding where it's going to provide the most value to our customer base, and masking it for now because it could create, there's obviously the concept of hallucinations and things like that that could create a lot of confusion and more frustration, especially when we talk about the service layer, which is probably the most ripe for providing a better experience through AI. But it does come with its own risk of, providing wrong answers, providing high level confidence to those wrong answers. So we're trying to be protective of that and just do a lot of our own training and in-house models to get high propensities here as well. But great question. Yeah, feel free to keep sending those in here. We got a few more minutes left, so I'd love to keep answering any questions. Yeah, so great. This is another great question. Will the knowledge base be auto-generated based off of client tickets? Will users be suggested articles based off of the user's attempted submissions? Yeah, so right now, the knowledge base is manually generated today. We do intend to look at, kind of the context of the user's questions to facilitate that. That's actually a great use case for generative AI. and not necessarily RPA in that regard, but just being able to really quickly summarize the ticket, look at our past ticket history to generate a dynamic knowledge-based article. And that's again what I just alluding to there is we got to be really protective of that for the propensities and the hallucinations that could potentially get into that with the user because then they just spent 10 minutes trying to use the knowledge base to troubleshoot that lead them into not getting any closer to solving their use case. But the users being suggested articles based off the user's attempted submissions is another aspect that we're working on right now. And when you go into here and you search for something like whatever you're looking for as a general use case, if I look for, let's see if I can find one in here. Anything in there as far as like the general context, you do get, your forms that you could submit as well as any knowledge-based articles that surface from there, and that would pull them up. And the users themselves, after this loads, they'll be able to read that and they'll be able to dictate was this helpful or not. The things that we're thinking about doing there is that we're going to we automatically send an email follow-up when you submit a ticket, whether that's within Quest, obviously, or through the email connector that we have where you're not actually in the portal to submit a case. But we do want to have a capability within there that says, hey, have you tried these three things, and dictates the support articles based off that as well, too. But great question. And it's a great use case for this. Again, given the ROI on knowledge-based articles is usually pretty low because of the adoption that you see with users and especially, different generations. But also, it is something it's a high cost to maintain and keep up to date, especially in the realm that we work in today with technology. Okay, looks like that's all the questions that came in for right now. But those are great questions. So appreciate you guys. We're happy to keep answering questions. And if you guys have some follow-up afterwards, we'll be sending out a survey that you could fill out too with any of the follow-up. But you can reach out with your account manager, to learn more about what we're doing with RPA, kind of getting plugged in with some of these automations. If you want to get set up with some of the user onboard, offboard automation that we have, or look at potentially even just working with us on a consulting realm to talk about how we could help maybe even discover what could be automated within your business and what that might look like, in general sense. I did talk about you do have some existing licensing in a lot of cases if you use Microsoft as your base level technology for RPA, given you have Power Automate that it comes included with the majority of the base plans like Business Premium and Business Standard and things like that. So it's really an interesting concept because you could begin to play around with it, as I was mentioning earlier, without actually investing a lot more money, right? In the beginning here, there is a level of competency that you have to have within those tools, obviously, too. But it is a good gateway, to get your toes in the water, if you will, for getting exposed. And the great thing about Power Automate is that they have a lot of native connectors to Excel sheets and your Word document, and like everything that you could see as maybe having a lot of time spent. So I want to thank everybody, for joining today. We'll have this recording available as well, too, for any of those of you that want to access that. But always feel free to reach out for us. And if you want to learn more about Sourcepass, you can go to our website at sourcepass.com, and there's some engagement activity that you can do there to reach out. But yeah, it was great to be on this call. Always love this topic, and looking forward to see you guys in the next one. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks everybody.